Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and you're joining us for our grand opening for World Tourism Network. In this session, we're welcoming a guest from South Africa, from Johannesburg, Dr. Manj Subiah. I hope I pronounced this correctly.
Jürgen, it's Manj.
Manj, okay, all right, okay.
Much simpler.
I will learn. You know, I'm going through this for many years. People have a hard
Quite all right, quite
time
all right.
Jürgen in North America, so it's the same
Yes,
thing. But anyways, welcome, and
thank you.
probably best if you introduce yourself. And before we do this, just a few of us, but we're opening it up for Q&A after this presentation. Or since we're just a small group, I think it's probably okay if you have a question just to interrupt and jump in. There's only 4 of us. Maybe we're going to have a few more. Now, this event, like the many other events we have planned, and I see Mona here from Jordan. She has also one of our presenters in a few days. You can see if you go to WTN /expo, and you find all the things we're planned for the week for our opening. There's a lot more added. Just today we added 11 more events, and I see we have about 14 more in queue. So it's going to be a lot between the end of this month and some really, really interesting stuff coming up. And if you have anything to contribute, or you feel like you wanted to be part of a panel, just reach out to us on the same page. Just go to WTN.travel, World Tourism Network, and simply go to the event page, and there's a form you can send us back. Of course, these events are only for our members, but it's easy to become a member if you're not a member. Simply go again to WTN.travel and click on becoming a member. But without further delay, Manj, I'm not going to pronounce your name again. Welcome to Joburg, and go ahead. My apology.
All right, so welcome everyone. It really is a great, great pleasure to be here. And I must just say thank you to our host, Jürgen, for organizing this great, great initiative. It really is fantastic. And I want to just, without further ado, just launch into a screen share straight away. And Jürgen, if you can maybe enable that, that would be just great.
Now, let's try it.
Fantastic. So let's see.
There's on the bottom of the page, you see chat and screen share. If you click on it, I think it should bring you to
yeah, we've done that. I'm not just sure why it's not letting us do that, but let's see. Oh, there we go.
There it is. Okay.
Fantastic. Right. So I want to start off with a poll, guys, because the fact that you're here means that you're kind of an elite sort of group. So let me just start off with a poll and say, how many of you have made decisions using gut feel and gut instinct, and it just hasn't worked out?
Wow, that's me.
Yeah. Okay. And feel free to just chat in the chat box.
There's Mona. She raises her hand. Mona, just jump in. No problem. It's only 4 of us. So
fantastic. And
I just want to say for sure, we're females. We always use our gut.
Right. And you know what? If you've made this decision, has it actually blown up in your face, or has it actually worked out all right?
What a question. I guess we're all doing our best.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you've said yes to either of those, then you're in the right place at the right time, right? Because as Jürgen said, this is the session on II or IIntel or intuitive intelligence and its value in business, as well as the AI value in business. And as Jürgen also introduced, I'm Dr. Manj Subiah, founder of GIS. And at the end of this session, we're going to share with you what is intuitive intelligence, or you will have an inkling at least of the value of intuitive intelligence in business. What is the AI value? And time allowing, we will end with an AI demonstration. All right, but in terms of background, right? So I've had diverse industries, really paint, chemical, plastics, manufacturing, occupational health, education training, and the last 5 years, the coaching sector. By way of background, I looked at research on strategic decisions and decision making, and more particularly how business leaders derive their strategic sense making, their decision making, and really their ability to call it right, and what they call a sense of timing, right? So once again, I'd like to thank you all for being here, taking the time and effort, and we really appreciate and value you for connecting like this, all right? And I'm pretty sure, you know, you might have encountered some form of resistance, some of you more than others. So really, I'm giving you all a virtual round of applause for being here. All right, so why intuitive intelligence, right? We're looking at facing the unknown. If ever you're not sure of what to do, this is the domain of intuitive intelligence, where something has changed. What used to work before doesn't work anymore. In terms of personal and business goals, and indeed global ripple effects. We're looking at very uncertain times now. We need the ability to read the signals. You've heard it said that timing is everything in life. So just staying with that. In terms of personal and business goals and indeed
Sorry, my thing started on its own here.
Well, yes, yeah, no, I see I've fooled myself somehow, which is AI scooting for it, right? So by the end of this session, I'm hoping to have left you all with a little bit more knowledge of how AI operates, how it can be of value to your business, and we'll end with a look at it like a typical AI application, which is useful to your business. Because really, how AI and AI intersect is that AI frees you up cognitively, it frees up the cognitive loading to develop your AI more and to innovate more and to grow your business more. And really, I just want to find out, are you all good with that? Just type in the chat box if you are. If you're good with those outcomes and you want to proceed, let's hear it.
Sure.
Hmm?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Right. So why do I feel it's important to share this with you? Because as I mentioned, after 23 years in corporate and business in diverse industries, chemical, paint, plastics, you know, I noticed that no matter what industry, and as I said, past 5 years in coaching, what industry I worked in, there were some leaders that stood out, that had the knack for making decisions that were spot on, so to speak. And they seemed to have the ability to make the right call no matter what the challenge, you know. And so I began researching what later became known as the construct of intuitive intelligence, or IIntel, or II, same thing. And this approach views the brain and humans as having many intelligences, and that an integrated intelligence such as IIntel was something which we can call upon when we find ourselves in uncertain, ever-changing times, you know. And guess what? Guess what times we're living in right now, right?
No kidding.
No kidding. Right. So, so what is intuitive intelligence? So sometimes we like to define things by what it can do or how it presents. you know, and that's especially a knack we humans use when we can't really figure out what on earth something is. So this is the format of, for example, a structural definition, if you want to put it that way. Right, so here's another poll coming up. So I want you to remember how you felt when you had to make an important call in a time of great uncertainty, because this paves the way for what intuitive intelligence is. Hmm? Do you all remember how you felt when you had to make a call in a time of great uncertainty? There was a lot depending on it. The stakes were high, and you had to make that call. Do you remember how you felt?
It happens a lot lately, huh?
Yeah. All right. So, yes, indeed. So, in the chat box, what kind of words would you use to describe it? Hmm? What did you feel when you had to make that call?
Mona sets the calculated risk. I don't know if this was from before.
Yeah, it could be a calculated risk. You could have felt a sense of uncertainty accompanying that, right? Some of you might have felt a sense of fear. Some of you might have felt that sense of uncertainty very keenly.
Mhm.
Now, let me ask you, how many of you were aware that in the midst of all that uncertainty, of a certain sense of knowing, a sense of knowingness, if you like? Hmm?
Mhm.
And, you know, whether it was to get more information or not, you know, in making that calculated risk, Mona, whether it was to, okay, so I don't know this, this is a knowledge gap, I'm going to get more information, right? So that was the sense of knowing that you had about that, perhaps. And really, you had to call on your own inner resources, right? And one of those is your own inner sense of knowing, right? So you see, the thing about intuitive intelligence is that it is what would you say? Right, so there's a cue here. And it's accompanied by a question of, what if we could access our intuitive intelligence so that we could know, we could access a form of knowing? Because really, when you look at intuitive intelligence, it's sometimes described as a form of knowing. And you can actually call it, if you type FOK in the chat box, it comes across as an expletive, right? And you could say that's appropriate because you know what? This is like a missing link in your life. I mean, it's been staring at you in the face for most of your life. You've called upon it in uncertain times. It's like been guiding you like your very own GPS without you even knowing it. So, you know what? You've had this form of knowing. And when we talk in the context of intuitive intelligence, we call it a form of knowing stripped of all falseness, all implicit biases, if that's possible. We call it stripped of all illusions or learned, conditioned resistance patterns or conditioned patterning or ego patterns. And that's what intuitive intelligence is in its purest form. And when you access that, you allow for a form and a way of knowing which is, well, it's like a laser which cuts through steel. It cuts right through to the heart of the matter, and you can just see it. You can just see it. And you know, you know this by what you would call an aha moment. How many of you have experienced that? An aha moment?
Well, I think that's a normal thing, isn't it? To experience.
Well, you know, people that are intuitively intelligent have that kind of mode operating, and it feels like a sense of normalcy, right? But people that really do not plug into that intuitive intelligence, it's something that can strike them like a bolt out of the blue. So, people call it, and it's being called an aha moment. Newton called it a eureka moment. Um, some people have called it, innovators have called it a flash of insight, a stroke of genius. People describe the effects of it in many, many ways, but what is the underlying reason for it, or the causative agent for it? What Mintzberg actually in the 1900s in business research on decision making called it illumination. It was one of the processes of decision making. And what happens with the aha moment is this. It's a distinct leap in consciousness, if you like, which allows you to make a discovery, to make a decision which kind of transforms the situation, right? It's said to be your own intuitive intelligence working for you all the time. You've just been enabled at that moment, enabled to access it. So it's an inherent, it's a dynamic capability in the leader, and it acts at the core of it all the time. Right. So I'm getting a kind of feedback, Jürgen, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hope
mine
that's
too.
not my AI bot in
No,
the
no, no, no,
background.
it doesn't come. I think it might be coming from someone. Okay, it came from Wolfgang. Wolfgang, I muted you, but if you want to say something, you can always unmute you so we don't get the background.
Welcome,
Go ahead.
Wolfgang. Right. So that's the kind of first layer to this, because this is a many-layered thing that we're going into now. And the second layer of intuitive intelligence, and the second layer to this form of knowing, if you like, FOK, is where you know not just the what, the where, the when, the who, the why, the how of a situation. And people from a technical background will know exactly what I mean, because this is the kind of head intelligence that we're talking about. The who, the what, the where, the why, the when, right? The so-called head knowing of a subject. But what if you end up knowing the truth of the matter, where you cut through to all the bull um, DUSD, if you like, or another four-letter word, if you like? When you cut through all that bull, what form of knowing, when you see things on a much deeper level? That second layer is a form of knowing where you experience the truth of it actually, directly, not just like the iceberg, where you see the tip of the iceberg, but the submergence underneath. So now you're getting to seeing the visible part, but also a little bit of the hidden part, if you like, the invisible aspect of it. And we know from research that CEOs and senior executives say that they oftentimes went far beyond intuition when making their decisions. They had a sense and a faculty of not just the head intelligence, but they had a faculty of sense making and almost a wordless understanding of the meaning of the situation. Many of them, if you ask them how they knew to do that, just said at that moment, they'll say, I just knew. Don't ask me how. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Hmm?
No, 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 absolutely. I think we all had this feeling, I would think.
Fantastic. Look, I did mention this was an elite group, right? Yeah, so it turns out the CEOs and the executives in business, they instinctively followed a process, because this is the research I'm sharing now. They followed a process which seemed to unlock their intuitive intelligence. And really, it's a process that's learnable. This is the takeaway that I'd like you to get from this. So it's a process which clearly shows that intuitive intelligence has morphed into a much more evolved form than intuition. So when it's applied to a situation, it enables you to have an integrated way of information processing. It's an integrated intelligence. So you end up making decisions which are, in short, a capacity for right action, if you like. And that's quite a multi-layered thing. So let's go a little bit deeper into it, because in so doing, we unpack the third layer to this form of knowing of intuitive intelligence. You see, you may have heard CEOs speak of, they have a sense that they say, I'm a participant. I have a sense that I'm a participant in this thing. It comes to me at odd, unexpected moments, and the research documents these kinds of moments. On a lighter side, it's like the one thing they cannot order, they cannot delegate. So this thing is always something that comes to them, that they are a participant. They choose voluntarily to collaborate in this much larger thing that they're a part of. And that's the third layer to this form of knowing. So to give you a very real case, real world example, a CEO of a multinational company related, I've learned to go to bed with a notepad next to me, even when on holiday. I've learned that if I don't write it down in the morning, come morning, it's gone. And I think we can all relate to that, right? This is where you get a sense of this thing being linked to this network of what Einstein called cosmic intelligence. You just don't have the head knowledge, but you have a sense of the heart knowledge, and you have a sense of not just the gut sense, but when you plug into it, it's what Einstein called cosmic intelligence. And this is the makeup of intuitive intelligence. And the common thing about this is that they normally need to be alone to access it, mostly in conducive surroundings. And now you can see the value coming through in business, because the business leader needs to cultivate that kind of culture to be able to have an intuitively intelligent team. So one can ask, what if you could have a sense of a wordless understanding of a situation, and the implication of this wordless understanding? Imagine it flowing in your favor. Instead of feeling like you're swimming upstream all the time, you have a sense of this when you listen to CEOs that say, it feels like you plug into an awareness and you don't suppress it. They've learned not to try to suppress it, because they realize that it is by its very nature intelligent. It's like it, as they relate, it already knows. You don't even have to, it's a form of knowing. And they kind of say it knows what you don't even know that you don't know. So it's a very valuable thing to be able to access. How many of you would like to be able to do that voluntarily?
You're doing it already, aren't you? I mean, people are doing this out of routinely already, or not?
I think when it comes to Jürgen, was that a question to myself or to the group?
To the group or to you? I'm just curious.
Right. Okay. So in terms of doing it already, it is something that is there. So if one is doing it already, it is fantastic. Often it's driven by sheer necessity because the world offers no other answers. So one is forced to plug in, if you like, to one's inner resources. And I think what the point is I don't know where the group is in terms of this, but it would be nice to have some feedback there in terms of what is their sense of it. Are they finding that they're able to have a sense of this thing, of intuitive intelligence working for them, or being able to plug into it? What is the response there?
I think we may have curious people who who maybe need more time to think about, but it's a fascinating
Yeah,
discussion. Yeah.
yeah, yes, yeah. I would definitely agree with that because what's clear is that these are times where one needs the resources to be able to plug into, especially so when you look at the kind of effective decision making and the VUCA context, the need for effective actions and decisions. And the VUCA context, VUCA standing for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous context that we're in, that we've all been thrust into. So very important then that we have that structural definition in mind when we go into the next framework, if you like. So in business, you'd look at obviously the organizational structure made up of the internal and external industry and so on, of which the company may be a part of. So here's the company thrust into this very volatile, uncertain organization. And then you have organizational systems made up of for example, the technological systems, what agreements there are, what customer care systems, what management control systems, and really the people and performance systems. All right. And hopefully the business also has a strategy in terms of way forward and what they want to achieve, what are the goals, the purpose, and so on. Very often the business is made up of, for example, a behavioral and cultural context within which it operates. And this is where the II comes in. Because it's housed in people themselves, the resources and the capabilities of the people. And in the workshops and so on, we look at the kind of building blocks which make up II. But for now, it would be great if you could come away with a kind of picture of II being that resource and capability, which then offers us a kind of way forward in looking at an ability which develops and manifests in performance, because this is where it translates into business. You want something that works for you in performance. So at this stage, because the research is in early days, it cannot be linked to be a predictor of performance. That's definitely what I cannot tell you. But what I can tell you is that the business leaders that operate in this way, wow, they're way ahead of the pack. And I can tell you that when you experience this for yourself, nobody needs to tell you this because you'll know for yourself about this ability. This kind of ability offers you being at the right place at the right time. I mean, this kind of thing has even been coined synchronicity, um, synchrodestiny. There's a whole range of terminology. But really, what it means is the knack and the ability to be at the right place at the right time, doing the right things. And the ability is on point because the outcomes are there for all to see, right? And here, this research was housed within top 100 companies, within C-suites, in ever-changing environments. And that's why the takeaway for the tourism and hospitality industry is so valuable, because this can be something where when you're pressured and you need something in terms of performance, and indeed your entire reputation is being staked on it, like in the example that I'm just about to share with you, this is something that is so valuable. You see, during the research, there was a CEO of a mining company who related how, he outlined an entire business strategy that he'd been struggling with for about 2 years. He outlined this entire business strategy in less than 20 minutes on the back of a napkin, 30,000 feet up in the air. I mean, I didn't ask him where he was flying to, but he said he had plenty of resistance, but he went ahead, and when he had this business strategy, he implemented it. He implemented it in spite of the resistance anyway. And now that takes guts and ability, which shows up in their performance. That knack of calling it right led to a successful turnaround. Now let's look at the other aspect. Oh, the other example of a CEO involved in an expansion, wanting to expand the footprint, the African footprint, if you like, with an international stakeholder. So he was scheduled for dinner with a key stakeholder, and the key stakeholder turned up with another. They introduced him as an uncle. And you know what? Like a bolt out of the blue, the CEO said, you know what? I just knew. Don't ask me how I knew, but I just knew that this uncle, if you like, was key to this deal that we were going to make. And so what the stakeholder did was, if you and I might choose to ignore the uncle, or just be courteous and polite, and just focus all our efforts on the deal maker, thinking, well, this is where I've got to get this deal right, and I've got to focus on this guy, and he's got to understand. But because of this aha moment and this bolt out of the blue insight that the CEO had, he kind of made sure that he focused on the uncle. And he kind of made sure that he had his buy-in in describing the deal. And you know what? By the end of the dinner, he had got the buy-in from the uncle. And guess what? Can any of you take a wild guess what was the real state of play here? Who do you think was the real stakeholder in this scene? Hmm? Do you think it was the deal maker who purported to be the deal maker, or was it the uncle? Any wild guesses? Hmm? You can unmute, or you can feel free to chat in the chat box. Uncle or deal maker? Uncle or deal maker?
Uncle. Okay, Mona thinks
Okay.
uncle.
Who said? You're absolutely right. Who is that?
That was Mona, our friend from Jordan.
Fantastic. 100% Mona. It was the uncle. And the deal was signed. And this was the kind of state of play it is. You see, when one is open to that, as the CEO clearly was, then, wow, then things happen, and you can't always say that you called it, but you could say that you participated in it, Right. And the third thing is that we find about intuitive intelligence is that it is a perception of immediate meaning and sense making, not easily achieved by other means. And this was that example that we looked at.
Wow.
Right. So, yeah. So now we kind of have an inkling of what is intuitive intelligence, right? A form of knowing. It's an inherent dynamic capability. It's certainly an integrated intelligence in terms of how its information processing operates, right? We've seen that, right? And it's a perception of immediate meaning and sense making. All right. So therefore, and therein lies its value in terms of particularly the travel and tourism and hospitality industry. It's an ability. It's open to development, because obviously the intuition of a 5-year-old is very different from the intuitive intelligence of a 50-year-old, right? And one goes into the building blocks, the specific building blocks, to get more insight in terms of that. But certainly it's open to development. It shows up, and it shows up in terms of real-time performance, right? So in terms of being a vital skill set, really, the sources and the availability of multiple information inputs and the sources of knowing are necessary in terms of accessing the form of knowing on these 4 levels. So let's look at head knowing. Now, many of us know head knowing as a kind of routine use, right? It's the mental mode in which we all operate, intellectual thinking. And I'm just going to touch on the kind of, because I've spent the 5 years in the coaching space, I'm going to touch on the kind of space that one focuses on shifting if one is stuck in this kind of pattern. And why that's important is because it prevents, it's a block to accessing your intuitive intelligence if you're stuck in this headspace. And funnily enough, you kind of present with, I've seen this, people present with physical afflictions. And it's an interesting kind of research area. I can't draw direct parallels to this, but I do notice that there are afflictions in the kind of head and throat region. And really the coaching would shift in terms of, to be able to shift this, would focus on being able to speak our truth. And often there is very real resistance, or what we perceive as real resistance patterns and conditioning patterns to preventing that. And if you've experienced this, that you know that these things are not very, they may sound glib, but they're very, very real difficulties to surmount and to overcome. And the takeaway I want to offer you here is that once you have overcome them, it's a kind of opening up and a shifting of the space. All right. Now let's look at the other aspect, the second aspect of intuitive intelligence, which is heart knowing. And some people operate in this space very, very naturally, and they would be the kind of people that are often into the artistic space, and they're into an experiential level, and they operate in this space all the time. And you can find it in their language as well. They will often ask you, did you feel that? Do you feel it? I feel this way or the other, right? And this is the kind of space that they operate in continually, if not frequently. And the caution I would offer here is certainly not to base one's decision making only on this stream. It is to open yourself to the knowledge that it is only one aspect of knowing something. Remember that form of knowing and how we unpack the layers? It's only one aspect of knowing something. And indeed, what I've noticed is that when one is stuck in this space, you often have a kind of linkage to physical ailments. It's almost as if this intelligence is telling you to listen to me now. You know, you need to open yourself up. And often folks stuck in the stream are wont, or they're given to irrational emotional outbursts. They'll tell you, you know, I've been feeling very ungrounded. I've been feeling very like I'm off balance in some way, right? And obviously then the coaching would revolve around um, looking at feelings of abandonment, betrayal, rejection, resentment, blame. And often these folks will tell you, you know, I seem to be stuck in a cycle of betrayal. I seem to be stuck in this blame cycle, this victim cycle. And so this is where the focus would be on shifting that kind of pattern. And when it does shift, it is often a kind of huge unburdening that happens. Right, let's look at the third aspect of this form of knowing, which comprises intuitive intelligence, which is gut knowing. Now here the primary input is our gut feel or our hunch. And this is the wordless aspect of knowing. For example, that waking up in the middle of the night, which we might have experienced with a clear solution to a problem. It's an aha moment. And and actually we have no idea really of how that idea or solution came together. We just know that it did, and we're very grateful that it did, right? The caution I would offer here is that immediately write it down, because come morning, it's gone. Right. And in the coaching space, of course, or the business advisory space, you actually often have executives that present with uh, tremendous digestive problems uh, associated with the GIT, with the colon, even mid-lower back problems. Emotionally, because you know the diagram I showed you earlier, where the human being is comprised of this integrated many layers, and the emotional part of it is very much a part of it. So it might overflow into addictions. And if one is stuck in this pattern of gut knowing, it might overflow into patterns of approval seeking, patterns of acceptance seeking. Now, all of that is, one has aspects of that in normalcy, in one's what you would call normal life. What we're saying here is that when one is stuck in it, then this intelligence will cue you to tell you, you know what, I'm actually stuck in it now. Do something about it. And obviously then the move here would be to look at the conflicts that are deep-seated. Often here, and you may be able to resonate with this. There's a familial background of deep-seated secrets that are often underlying these kinds of patterns. You may also find bullying behavior that surface. All right. It's actually fascinating, but it's such a pity that we don't have the time to actually go into more of this. But what I do want to go into is intuitive intelligence. The takeaway here is that these are three disparate aspects. These, what appears to be separate aspects, they need to be integrated to have intuitive intelligence open up and flow for you. And this integration process results in the opening up to the fourth form of knowing, which Einstein called cosmic intelligence. And Carl Sagan called it eco-intelligence. All right, the state of balance, the three forms of knowing then lead to, in the human being, a certain awareness, a certain heightened awareness, if you like, without any kind of artificial help. Thank you very much. There's an aliveness to connectedness, there's a kind of conscious collaboration, if you like, where you consciously develop your intuitive intelligence. And here you have the behavioral aspect of where one is alive to the environment. You have the scanning of the environment. You have an awareness of multiple levels of inputs. And you have a processing of this information in a very clear, non-judgmental way. You gather, you learn the information, and it comes through from many sources. And how you verify that you're actually on the right track is that you'll actually have verifiers such as, or what's one calls, and I don't think there's anything such as coincidences, but you may relate to the language of coincidences. You may relate to the language of synchronicity, if you like. I prefer to call them verifiers. Environmental eco intelligence verifies that you're actually on the right track and that you are part of this collaborative process in terms of a universal intelligence, if you like. And in terms of coaching, the space there that one ultimately moves into is a kind of state of flow, a state of being in balance, where you enter out of balance, you then leave with a kind of being in balance. And there's all there. I've heard it being described also, you know, when one does a feedback session, where there's a sort of a sense of in loveness again with this life. There's a sense of aliveness. And yeah, the language of love is not foreign to it. The language of grace also has come into it, right? So, right, to recap, intuitive intelligence, what I'd like you to take away from it is that it is an inherent dynamic capability. It does use integrated information processing. You do go away with a kind of immediate meaning and perception and sense making, a form of knowing, and it does show up in daily life. And it is my work really, and my mission really, is to integrate or help people access intuitive intelligence. And really what that looks like is that people have an integration of these three disparate aspects into an evolving intelligence mode that is really opens one up, if you like. And so, for example, GIIS, the mission really is to roll out this between 2018 to 2023. The work is really to reach 10,000 people. And Jürgen, this is perhaps where you come in. Because in opening some of these kinds of avenues and forums, you really are getting people more and more aware of it. And I can be contacted on Dr. Manj at giis.co.za. The website then is giis.co.za. And here's where we look at, for example, the AI application and the value of AI in business. And this can be from as complicated as automating your processes to something as simple as converting leads, converting a casual visitor on your website to becoming engaged. And this is where, for example, let's look at the GII's website, and let's look at a simple AI application, which then frees you up. Remember that cognitive load I was talking about, where you get a visitor on the site and then they send you an email and then they want to know the same type of questions. And these questions can be automated, guys. And this is where AI comes in. For example, let's look at a customer bot, right? So as soon as there's a visitor on your site, you have a customer bot, a widget that opens up and says, hey there, welcome to travel company. And for example, if let's take, give me an example of one of your companies. Mona, what would your company be, for example, or Wolfgang, or type in your chat box. The name of your company. Come on, it's a free plug, right? So what company do we have? OTT?
We're hotel owners. Okay. Mona says.
Sorry, I didn't get that. What was that?
Oh, Mona said there are hotel owners, Landmark Hotel.
Landmark Hotel, right. Hello there. Hey there. Welcome to Landmark Hotel. My name is, and so Mona, since this is your baby now, what would you call your chatbot? You can call her Amy. I mean, I've just called her customer bot, right? Just to give you an inkling of what function she would, and I prefer to have a female chatbot for obvious reasons. They're kind of very efficient. So Mona, what would you call her?
Welcome to Jordan on Pink.
Jordan. Okay, right. So So you would call her, so would you call her Jordan?
That's what she writes. Jordan on pink.
Okay. Okay, so I've just got the first word, Jordan. Somehow the line has dipped on me. So I'm going to say Jordan. So welcome. My name is Jordan. Please, can I take your full name? And so you type your full name. So I'm going to say Mona. Right, and she'd say, Jordan says, thanks, Mona. Are you an existing customer? So, okay, Mona, let's just say that, yes, you're an existing customer, right? So you'd say yes. And she'd say, thank you. Now, remember, you may not be an existing customer. You may just be a casual customer, right? So you'd ask, what's the nature of your query? She asks you. And you'd say, okay, I want to make a booking. I want to make, I want to find out if you're available for accommodation. So I want to book. So then, or I want to buy accommodation, or I have a product query, right? Now these would be customized, for example, accommodation or bookings. So let's say I want to buy an item. And then Jordan says, oh, that's fantastic. We have a team on hand to take your phone orders. Please contact them. Now, do you see the difference here? Instead of just going through a rote thing, they actually engage your visitors. And it's great chatting to you. Have a great day. And there's now a custom experience that one is offered. Now, let's just say that, take that example that I offered earlier of a casual visitor, right? And you basically wasn't. You wasn't a customer of Landmark Hotels, and you offer your first name and you say, hi, I'm Mona. And then Jordan says to you, hi, Mona, are you an existing Landmark Hotel customer? And you say no. And then she says, well, what's the nature of your query? And you say, okay, I'm just generally inquiring whether there's accommodation or whatever, right? And then she says, oh, okay, thanks, Mona. Please call our reception, and they'll be able to direct your call, or type your question below, and I will ask a member of your team to contact you via email. All right, and so you can go ahead to say, booking, please, for weekend, and then you can say 2nd to the 8th December, which means right now after this call, you're going to go on holiday.
And
Right.
this intelligent thing, I mean, it's similar to what you're describing, what Hey Google is doing, right? I talk to Hey Google in the morning. She reads me my news. I can ask her a question, and
Yes,
she knows
exactly.
everything. You know, she's
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's another application of AI and the value that it offers in business, right? And it comes back to that point of the intersection between IIntel, and AI, because it frees up your cognitive loading to be able to develop your IIntel more. And so here Mona says, oh, you'd like a booking for 2nd to 8th December? Thank you. Please, could you enter your email address? And then you enter your email address. Now look how clever she is. She's kicked me out. Right?
No, it's
Okay.
we're living
Yeah.
in fascinating time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now I have a little bit more respect for her. And I say to her, oh, all right. Okay. I'll give you my email address. And then she says, thanks. I'll pass on your message to a member of our team. They'll be in touch soon. It's been fun chatting with you. And you know where I am if you ever need me.
Yeah, no, it's. I remember my mother many years ago when they started with these type of recordings. She said she had a very nice conversation with a young man, and this young man was so nice to her, and they talked about everything. And a day later, she got a phone call, apparently from a human being, and wanted to know how her conversation was with the computer. You know?
Exactly. Oh, I could not have described it better. It just gives such a wonderful customer experience. So this is where I want to offer you the kind of intersection, if you like, because I believe that this is really to be able to increase our intuitive intel. We really need the help of AI, and this is kind of the service that we also provide. So yeah, just it's very simple to have a chatbot installed in your website. If you're interested, just send me off an email or reach out to me, and yeah, we'll take it from
And
there.
it's
But
very
I
easy. Also, we're going to have these recordings on our website. They're repeating, so you can listen to it
yes,
again. And also, there is a page for my under this in the search under South Africa. You'll find her, and perhaps this could be an interesting project. You know, you
absolutely.
wanted to maybe start a think tank within WTN, because that's really what we're doing. We're trying to
Fantastic.
get people to communicate, hopefully with a human, but intelligence also. And
Yes,
feel free to contribute if you're interested in having your own discussion around this. I think it could be a
yes,
fascinating discussion for
fantastic.
people who are interested in it. So I learned a lot.
Aw-
Thank you so much. I'm quite impressed, I have to say. And I have to listen to it again because it was a little bit complex, but wonderful.
Awesome, absolutely awesome. And I'd love some feedback. So, guys, if you could just type in the chat box what your feedback is, from one or zero if it was awful, to five if it was absolutely amazing, and three would be average. I could have watched TV rather. So from 0 to 5, just give us a rating, and this is with regard to just feedback and ongoing learning, because you'll find that one of the building blocks of intuitive intelligence really is the learning block. So obviously that's where I'm coming from.
No, no, thank you so much. And I
Such a
like
pleasure.
the feedback thing, and we can do this also after the event. I'm trying to
Fantastic.
turn this on here and get feedback. And but this was a wonderful discussion. We're a little bit already um, 15 minutes more than our time, but there's nothing else coming, so we're fine.
Oh,
And
fantastic. My apologies for that. I do
no,
tend to get carried away, but
no, it was
thank you so
wonderful. It
much
was
again.
well worth it. I'm sure that everyone who is still here from the very beginning, um,
Awesome.
thank you for
Awesome.
that.
Thank you,
And at
guys.
least it looks like you have there is definitely, it's something new, I think, for our group to deal with. So that makes it even more fascinating. So hopefully
Awesome.
we get more
Awesome.
people
Awesome. Awesome.
interested in what you're
Love
doing.
it.
But thank
Love
you
it. Love it. Love
everyone
it.
for
Thank you,
being
Jürgen.
a part
Thank
of
you,
it.
everyone.
And thank you so much for this great presentation, and everyone else. You find this and many other upcoming events. We're just getting started for the month, and we're going to have presentations all the way to the end of December. We're just going to cut out Christmas and New Year's. Other than that, every day is open. On the 9th and the 10th of December, we have our official launch. Our keynote event on December 10th will be fascinating. We have the new candidate for the UNWTO Secretary General. Um, from Bahrain is one of our guests in a panel with former ministers and candidates for UNWTO, and we're discussing the future of tourism in the World Tourism Organization. So that's something you definitely shouldn't miss. But there's a lot in between. We have panels about aviation, about hospitality, and so many different things coming up. Just go to WTN.travel, click on the expo, and you can listen to it. It's all free. We don't charge anyone for presentations. You don't have to pay to listen and to watch it. You're just welcome to be part of World Tourism Network, and we're all very excited to build this new organization. And thank you so much again, Manya, for doing this. And
Manj.
hopefully we'll be in touch, and you stay with WTN, and we can work with you hopefully in the future on a lot
Awesome.
more. in regards.
Awesome, Jürgen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys, and aloha from Hawaii. Take care. Bye-bye.